Today. Let's stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I make that motion.
A motion of a second? A motion of second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Motion passes. Presentation and approval of meeting minutes for the September 10th, 2024 meeting. A motion?
I'll make that motion as well.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye as well. Public comment. We have nobody signed up for public comment. So moving on to routine matters. Ms. Ferguson.
You. So we have our employees of the month. So I would like to ask Ms. Pally to come up to present for her employee of the month for the month of September.
You thought he could come, but possibly not. Our September staff of the month is Leland DeFord. Leland is amazing at doing so many small things, and he doesn't ask for recognition. He's constantly looking at our iStation tours, helping teachers troubleshoot with an iStation. He teaches photography to the students. He takes all the pictures for our memorable moments and our crazy moments. So he kind of is our unofficial official photographer, and we appreciate all the little things he does. Not only that, but on top of everything else, he finds time in his schedule on his own accord to pull kids for intervention groups because it matters. So that is why I am nominating him for our staff of the month.
May I say that he also regularly gently coaches the students in grammar, which is lovely. All the time.
And Miss Nesbitt from White Mountain Elementary.
So White Mountain employee. Yes. Michelle, come on.
Yay.
Because their son has been an educator for 26 years. So with all of that, I had to capture some message. So this is what they wrote. She leads the Sunshine Committee and helps make school fun. She's always spreading sunshine. What a great educator. She's amazing at everything she does. And this is also very true. Listeners, give yourself I think so. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
You doing trout this year? Trout.
Yeah.
Oh,
18.
okay. Awesome. Thank you.
And Miss Hooker, Forward of Middle School.
For Regis Middle School this month, Trisha Jamison is our employee of the month. And Trisha is just absolutely amazing. She definitely deserves this and more. She loves 8th graders. I'll say that again, she loves 8th graders. She cares about them. She wants them to be prepared for high school. Trisha does so many things. She is really, truly a heartbeat in our building. But two of the main things that are my most favorite, one, she sponsors Fashion Camp at LCMC. It's such an important piece to introduce our students to different things that they can do in the healthcare field. She gets them interested. They're so very excited. She gets them prepared to go over and to learn what they could when they grow up. The second thing is she is our newest student council member, and she is absolutely amazing. One of our main goals this year is student voice, student choice, and she is leading the way with making sure the students are at the heart of every decision, and they are helping to. So, thank you to Trisha for being wonderful.
And another, they're also well deserved. Yes. Yes.
Okay. The RHS employee of the month is Mario Montes. And the reason he is not here is because I need everybody to be in line and I didn't tell him to remind me to invite him. So this is my fault.
This is not the first time.
Takes a village to help Mr. Merrill run a school. So I do want to say this about it and supposed to be recorded.
You,
I'm gonna send it to him.
Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about Mario Montes. Mario Montes is a lovely custodian, but he is so much more than that to our school. I firmly believe that everybody carries equal weight in school. Kids, the well-being school. Nobody is tiered. Everybody's valuable. He is invaluable. From just managing his team and schedule, communicating with me, he's reliable on all things. He's just, I trust him completely. He is my guy. The reason why he's getting this time particularly is, I don't know if you know, but we recently hosted the governor and her agency fair, her expo, and her town hall. This man and his team worked tirelessly beforehand. He was communicating beautifully with her team before they even got here. Saturday morning, he was here before 7 o'clock and didn't leave probably until about 7 o'clock that night in a 12-hour day. He became not only my guy, but he was the governor's director of operations guy. He became he became the governor's lead security detail guy. He was everything to everybody that day. And he never complains. He never misses a beat. His blood pressure never goes up. He keeps me steady. So Mario, sorry, I forgot to invite you, but it's a heartfelt. I wish I could give you this every month. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on is the consent agenda, and we don't have any items under consent agenda this month, so we'll move to discussion items. Policy G 1300 to 1790. Any thoughts, questions, comments on the 33 pages worth of policy? It's actually not that bad, but
the only thing that we discovered, and when I say we, me and Mrs. Ferguson, was that we have in there about using bleach for cleaning up blood and things like that. And so we don't use bleach anymore. So I don't know exactly where that is. I'm sure you do. But it's referenced several times, and so we need to get that cleaned up. And I did talk to Gordy, and so we have a non-acidic disinfectant cleaner that is responsible for being able to kill any of the bloodborne pathogen type. So hepatitis B, COVID, any viruses. It's so anyway, it's not bleach, but it's something that takes care of
Bleach
what it
is
needs to
actually
take care of.
extremely basic, not acidic.
Oh, sorry. See, that's why I'm.
Extremely basic.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But
So we
yes,
can't
so
use
that's
it?
what I told
What
him.
actually
Like, I am
is
not a
killing it is
chemist.
probably acidic, slightly acidic. But anyway,
Thank you, Luther.
you're welcome. Just keeping you
But I
honest.
can tell you that we are not using chlorine bleach. We are using a non-acidic product that's a disinfectant. So,
lovely.
and also, if you guys don't mind, I did reach out to the nurses because we do know that protocols change. And so they're going to be reviewing the bloodborne pathogens portion just to make sure that the protocols are still current per the practice that should be in place. And so Nurse Lindsay was very helpful yesterday, both Nurse Lindsay at the high school and Nurse Lindsay at the middle school. So two Nurse Lindsays. But I asked them if they would be good with going through this just to make sure that it's still up to date.
Excellent.
If
Thank
that's
you for
okay
doing
with
that.
you, that when we bring
Yes.
it back for the next reading, that if there's any changes for protocols, that we'll have that updated for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Moving on, policy G 00500, personnel goals, policy objectives, first reading. And this and the next three are just first readings of changes, just grammatical or word changes from doing this last month.
Mhm.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Moving on, policy GO150 was general personnel policy, first reading. Next one is staff involvement and decision-making, first reading. Moving on, next agenda, our next discussion item, school board agenda with focus on student outcomes. And do you want to address this, Ms. Ferguson, or?
So I'll if Luther, if you want to start this discussion, under the board discussion, because it's also in my superintendent's report.
The premise of it is, with what we're doing, we're moving forward to being student focused,
Mhm.
and whether our agenda, where we stand on our agenda. And Mr. Tomlin asked me about it a few weeks ago, and I think
Mhm.
Member Potter had mentioned it in the last board meeting. So we're just touching base to see where we stand.
So Luther and I had a coaching session this morning, so I'll let Luther.
So yeah, Yolanda from CES is checking in with all of the cohort, all the districts in the cohort. Our turn was this morning, which was fortuitous. Maybe it would have been slightly more fortuitous last week, but it was fortuitous enough. Anyway, she said she seemed surprised that we were already doing a progress monitoring thing, so we're doing well with that. She said to your question about board self, I know that's not in here, but board self-review, that's actually coming, that's the next meeting. So next week or the week after when we meet with them, she's going to introduce that.
Good.
So it'll probably be just in time for the
Mhm.
visitation.
Perfect.
And in terms of this, she said that this is kind of probably going to come in December. And she always defaults back to her examples with Albuquerque, but like Albuquerque, after they got everything after they got their strategic plan done and their goal sets and started learning how to monitor and board self-review, then they set themselves a goal of trying to reach 20% of their meetings being student outcomes focused. And I think they finally achieved it after a little over a year. And now they've set themselves a goal of 30%. So it's very incremental and moving up. And she I guess she kind of said, don't stress about this right now until we get everything else moving. So I think in the framework that they've set up, this will probably come not last. I think the agenda diet will probably come last, but this will come second to last.
How'd they do it?
How did Albuquerque do it?
How'd they get the 20%? What did they do?
She said, and this is something that I'm not sure we can do. So they had a lot, they have, I don't know how many schools. They have a lot of schools.
Yeah.
They had a lot of recognition, like staff recognition, like what we just did, but it would be an hour. Or,
That counts?
yeah, no, it
Yeah.
doesn't count. So
No more
they
staff
they
recognition.
basically eliminated all of that, and they do
Oh,
it
so they worked down the denominator instead of the
exactly
numerator.
100%. So, and they also with their goal of getting it to 20%, they also were trying to get their meetings to under 3 hours. And I remember a few years ago there were Albuquerque Journal headlines saying that they had meetings that were pushing 10 hours. And they had many that were over 6. So they have a different problem than we have.
Yeah.
So Yolanda is actually going to watch this meeting because it's our, to be in her best behavior. So she's going to watch this meeting because it's our first progress monitoring meeting. And she said that she would try to make notes about time in and time out of student outcomes focus and send them to us in a recap. So
Oh,
when
that's
she
great.
sends that to me, I will forward it on to you.
That's good. Mhm. Thank
She
you,
also
Yolanda.
says, and I still can't make myself do this, though Mark has done it a few times. She says, watch your own meetings later, which I'm going to try and work on that, but not my favorite thing. Anyway, so does that answer people's questions about that?
So board evaluation, you guys are gonna do next week in your CES
Yeah.
meeting, and then we'll touch on it at our site meeting.
Yeah, maybe we can do that sort of generic version and see how we like it, that we did
Okay.
it at the workshop a few months ago.
And then the agenda thing will happen in December.
Ish, yeah.
Anything to
Thank
add,
you.
Ms. Ferguson?
No, it was a really good coaching session. So I think
She was a little hard on you, but I'm not going to tell you any specifics.
I have not been there.
no, she was not. In fact, she was very complimentary to the board for the work that everybody is doing. So
Excellent. I like her version better, Mr. Light.
uh-huh.
Does that clarify anything? Does that answer any questions? We're moving forward. It's a process.
I spoke to you about it. Elizabeth, I think maybe you mentioned this at a prior meeting also. I'm not comfortable with the incremental approach. I think the 50% was, I sensed urgency about that in the book.
Yeah.
And I think there are things we could do that might move us along faster. One suggestion on this committee is student outcomes isn't just proficiency. We're focused on that. What's happening with kids in the school right now, and kids that we're in a position right now to work with in advance, but outcomes are things that happen after they graduate as well, and developing a way to, number one, track that, number two, celebrate it, and I think we could usefully spend some time talking about career opportunities here and away, and postgraduate education and training things. So I'm just putting in a plug for pushing back a little bit on leaving, sort of deprioritizing that piece of the student outcomes puzzle, and trying to move forward with it a little bit quicker.
Good.
I feel you.
I'll lean on what I feel like Luther said. We're a smaller district. I bet we can chip away at it easier. But it'll be interesting to see then what she comes back with if she's indeed watching, her evaluation of our meeting, and then we'll work on it.
Very good.
Superintendent and board evaluations, which board evaluation and policy. So we've been talking loosely about this, and it is in the governance model, so we do need to take care of it. It sounds like it'll come up next month, not regardless anyway. So unless there's further discussion on that, is there any other? We need to do it probably December or January, but let's see what the governance model comes out with
Are you
first.
talking about the superintendent evaluation?
No, I'm talking about the board evaluation. I'm
Board
going backwards because
Okay.
we do need to do a self-evaluation.
Yes.
Prior to this, it was in our policy, so we should do that, but we'll table it, and unless there's further discussion, we can talk about it after their next meeting,
Yeah.
either at the site visit or next monthly meeting. But moving on then to the superintendent evaluation is also something we need to address in probably December, January. So last month, Luther was not here, so we volunteered him to sit on a subcommittee with Ms. Potter to discuss the superintendent evaluation. How'd it go? What's the report?
Well, we met, was it last week? The week before? Wednesday
Was it last
before that?
Wednesday?
I don't know.
Sometime in
It
the
was a
past.
Wednesday. I know that. So we met, and I think it was the Wednesday before last. And, in the meeting, in the last meeting, board meeting, I had voiced that I thought that we should follow the CES,
Yes, you did.
superintendent evaluation and do because, just kind of piggyback on what Dave said. I mean, I would rather be this now and not waiting in these increments, but I understand that this is a process that we have to go through. So with that said, Luther made sure that I got educated on the fact that
we really we really can't do that right now because the superintendent evaluation that's in here is we have to have data. We don't have it. So, I mean, we got a little tiny bit, but and we're evaluating like tonight. It should be a piece of the superintendent evaluation, what we're going to go over with the data that Ms. Ferguson's going to talk about. So anyway, so what we decided was it would be better to go with the one that's in our policy for the superintendent evaluation. Because that's the other thing, we didn't do anything with that. We said, well, we'll come back to that later. So that's in our policy saying that that's what we're going to do. So that's what we're going to do. And then Luther, do you want to talk about the survey?
Yeah, so it's in policy that we send out a staff 360 survey, which we have for, I don't know, 6 years, 5 years, some number of years. And we actually put it in policy a few years ago. So that goes out typically in October and stays open for 2 weeks to a month. And then we get the data back and discuss it usually in November or December before sitting down with the superintendent in the formal review that's in policy as well. So I guess the decision of the subcommittee was to stick with pretty much with the 360 evaluation that we had from 22, 23 minus a couple of questions. We read through them all, and Elizabeth and Becca liked most of the questions. And then we will do the formal evaluation that's in policy, which we changed last year.
Yes.
And complete that in December and discuss it with the superintendent, but also discuss how to change the policy on superintendent evaluation over the next probably 4 months or so so it's something that will fit in under the student outcomes focused governance model a little bit better, which will probably also include potentially remaking the superintendent's contract. And the appropriate time to do that would obviously been at the change of a contract, I assume. So there was a lot of discussion about this in the last CES meeting. Many districts are in this same sort of conundrum that they want to apply it to their superintendent's contract and evaluation procedure, but they don't yet know how. I think Truth or Consequences tried putting it in the contract, but they were working with the coach on how to best word everything. So I think if we do the review with the mind of what we want to see in the future, and following what's currently in policy, I think we will come out fairly well this year.
Are there references to evaluation in our current contract with the superintendent?
Well, there's references in policy. So
In the contract? No, the contract, that's what I'm asking you about.
I don't
I don't believe so.
believe so, no.
It's just in board policy.
It's in board policy.
Right. Yeah, I just wondered if it were referenced.
I think
in the
actually it
contract.
does say that the superintendent will get a review every year, and I think there's some verbiage to keep it on the track of around December-ish, because if you're not going to renew your superintendent, you need to tell them so they can get into the cohort of people who are looking around in the early part of the new year. So
The reason I asked was just because if there was, I wanted to be sure that there wasn't anything in the contract that contradicted or conflicted with policy. So we certainly ought to make sure they're consistent once we get around reviewing
Mhm.
the language.
can you look that up?
I think it'd be consistent right now. If we, when we start changing the evaluation process, it'll probably change. But it is something we would need to make sure we catch.
And I know that and the coach iterated this, that some school districts don't put it in the contract of the superintendent. They just say that there will be an evaluation, and then the evaluation is spelled out in policy. So, which
But-
makes it easier to tweak the evaluation.
But are they suggesting that we do put it? I mean, is that
No,
like best
no.
practice or no?
No, she didn't. She
Okay.
didn't say either way. She
Okay.
just said that I think it somewhat amounts to the same thing. If you're going to be beholden to the evaluation that's in policy, then it's in policy. And if you go to the trouble of changing it, which takes, at least 3 months, then there's I think there's enough time to adapt to that. Would you agree?
Mhm.
Being a superintendent, I've never had a job review in my whole life, so I'm not probably the best person to be talking about this, to be honest with you.
So there are 2 questions taken out of the 360 evaluation. Can we agree that we're going to launch this? Do you want to do it again, Mr. Light?
That was the plan.
Okay.
I guess the recommendation of the subcommittee is that we X these 2 questions and send this out as is the way we have for the past years, following the procedure that's in policy.
But didn't we just decide we're not gonna let it be out there for a month?
We can, yeah.
I mean, I don't see any point in that, based
A
on
couple
your,
weeks.
Yeah, a few weeks is fine.
Yeah.
I guess I would lean more towards sending it out mid-October or even early November then, because it gives especially new staff members more time to interact with our administration.
Okay.
Either indirectly or directly with the superintendent.
so you're gonna send it out when, you think?
But towards the end of October or the beginning of November.
Which is in alignment with our board policy on the time frame.
Yeah, we need it back by December.
Mhm.
It's in this December meeting, back and crunched. What's the word I'm looking for?
Analyzed.
Analyzed, loosely analyzed.
So we'll do our evaluation in December.
Yes. And I would just set the agenda up for everything in December with an action item afterwards, but it's
Yes.
many months away. So we can,
Okay, same
back to
evaluation
that.
form that's in policy.
yes,
You'll submit those questions end of the month, and we'll have it back before the December meeting. We'll have an executive session to do
I will even put a
Evaluation.
calendar reminder in so I don't forget.
any other discussion? No, moving on to reports, board reports. I'm guessing that we actually have something because I know we had events. You want to start, Member Potter?
Been a very bad board member this month. I've only been to the subcommittee meeting and that is it. And I do want to apologize for the missing the one at,
The native parent meeting,
well, that one and then
The Hispanic night, the
Hispanic
bilingual
meeting.
night.
the bilingual. meeting.
bilingual night. I wanted to go to that so bad. And then it's like I was standing there in my yard watering and thought, oh my gosh, that's tonight. And so I didn't get to go. So I don't have a good excuse. I just forgot completely all about it. And I was even up here talking to y'all that day. I was like, oh, so bad. But anyway, so yeah, I haven't attended anything, but I will rectify that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I didn't do anything either. I missed both of those. So we did the
It's not from
governor's
London.
cabinet. No, it was
Yeah, that was
it was actually really good. And if nothing else, that Mr. Montez is going to get all the credit. Then we'll give him all the credit. But I was impressed with the high school and layout and everything that it took place there. I went not knowing really what that was. That was impressive. And it was a good setup. I didn't stay for the town hall, but everything in the cafeteria and the hallways and cooking on the sidewalk and all the plastic bottles that you were just like,
The worst part was that the board got stuck in a conversation at the top of the stairwell, blocking everybody.
They did.
That was our fault.
We got to meet the secretary of PED at the top of the staircase for 30 minutes, and everybody just walked around and gave us, rolled their eyes. It was a good conversation. It was interesting to meet her. And I do think that we probably gained more ground having it here than just you trying to go to that superintendent meeting in Santa Fe, or us trying to catch her at an MSBA meeting. So, Member Light, do you have anything?
I went to the Hispanic night, which is amazing, or bilingual night, excuse me. Because Miss Magana sent me a text telling me to go, and I thought it was just going to be the middle school. So I showed up, and it was quite literally half the district. I think there were more people in the middle school than there are at graduation typically. Like, it was the whole commons area, which was the first time I've seen that filled. And every grade, or nearly every grade, performed something, which was lovely. Obviously, the little kids stole the show. We gave out awards for coming off of access. Yeah, so to maybe a half a dozen students, maybe more. That was nice. And there was amazing quantities of food and quite exquisite costumes. And everyone, I will say, I've spoken to a number of parents that I've seen out and about the community since then. And I said, hey, I saw you at the bilingual night, and they just gushed. So the reviews were positive or all around. That was probably 6 or 7 people I've spoken to. So it was quite the showing. And the teachers were actually, like, I spoke to a few teachers of the bilingual teachers, and they all said that they felt like the energy was high, and they hope that it continues to be high.
Well, the pictures that you posted were just amazing. So thank you for doing that. So it's really nice.
And then I went to the native parent meeting last week. I couldn't stay the whole time, but it seemed good. There was quite decent attendance considering it was the middle of the day and people asking questions. So,
Tomlin, do you have anything you want to add?
I deeply regret not having been to go to the bilingual night. Magana and her sister were Lizzie's bilingual program teacher. COVID. I was home for many of their Zoom classes, and they were amazing. You would have thought there was a real classroom full of live children in my house. Speaker turned up. And so I really felt I owed her, a show up for that event, which I knew was going to be pretty good. And I had to send regrets in advance. But really, we'll give a shout out on her behalf. Anytime there's an excuse, which this is one. I also was at the pre-activities during the governor's and cabinet, and I couldn't stay. I had to go to El Paso, get on a plane to go someplace. But I was there for the meeting that we had at the top of the stairs. I didn't see anybody rolling their eyes, but
Maybe it's
I
just
was
me.
focused on making eye contact with the secretary, who really seemed really like a very level-headed person who was talking Turkey right away in some detail, not all of which I could capture, but I think the superintendent had a pretty good first contact with her, and that she could be a valuable friend to the district, and that's why I was there to say. So that's my contribution.
Thank you. Moving on, item 10B would be superintendent's report.
Yes,
Ferguson?
so thank you. So I have a couple of things to go over tonight. I am going to ask that I can move down the number 3, the monitoring calendar, to the end, if that's okay, because I think that'll take the bulk of our time. I did want to give the board an update about the New Mexico School Association legal defense. And so this is about the 180-day rule. Superintendent Patterson from Carrizozo did attend the hearing on September 30th, and it was a 4.5-hour hearing in Roswell. And so what he reported back to me is that both attorneys did a very good job for both sides. So he said that the secretaries, the new secretary, her attorney did a very good job in defense of the 180. And then the superintendent's attorney did a very good job as well. And so he felt that this is a coin toss on the outcome. But what the judge asked both attorneys to do was to go back and write a brief. They have 2 weeks to write their brief, to submit the brief back to the judge. And then within a week after receiving the brief, then he will have a final ruling on the 180-day rule. So hopefully by the end of October, districts will have a result of this legal battle. So anyway, Superintendent Patterson did state that he felt that it was it could go either way because both had very good arguments for both sides. So that was that. I just wanted to give you an update because we've been talking about that. For culinary arts, we had a request for approval of school construction. So this is for PSFA to sign off, and we have an estimated 1.2 million for this project, and that's going to be at the middle school starting, I believe, in January. I think we're still on track. Gordy, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So that's super exciting, and Ms. Hooker and her team at the middle school have been preparing for that. And then going on to, I'm going to skip to the parent survey results. So one of the things for the monitoring and what we discussed as a district and as a school board is the communication with parents. And so we sent out the parent survey at RMS and RHS's parent-teacher conferences, which in the evening, I believe they had good attendance. They were, Miss Johnston actually was competing with Miss
Sorry to interrupt you.
yes. Yes.
It's not on there at the report.
Oh, I will. Yes, I apologize for that. Okay. And so the student surveys, we had about 80 people that completed the surveys between the 2 days, between the two schools, and then we opened it up to everyone. So we know that we have SVP and WME parent-teacher conferences coming up. So what I've asked Ms. Hawk to do is to reopen the survey, which we can do, same questions, nothing's changed, for parents to be able to, when they come to parent-teacher conferences at both SVP and WME, so that they can take the parent survey. We also offered it when we were at our Native American parent meeting out at the inn for parents to take at that time too. So, but currently, overall, we have had a very good response as far as, and I just wanted to highlight, overall, parents feel that schools are very effectively communicating important information regarding academic progress, events, safety protocols, 66% of the time. And then as far as addressing bullying, because this is always something that we're concerned about, conflicts and safety concerns, parents were confident or very confident 61.5% of the time. Another outcome from the survey is that 52% of parents feel that the school values and considers the parent input. And I think that is just going to increase because the intention is that we will conduct the survey now, we'll conduct it in the spring, and then the same questions, we will be creating a baseline for the next 3 years. So it'll be going out in the fall and it'll be going out in the spring. So we'll continue to work on that. What we found very interesting is the communication and how parents want communication coming to them. And so, of course, I thought it was Facebook or a Warrior app, but actually it's text messaging, and that's overwhelming. Parents replied that they would rather have a text than they would a Facebook post or even our Warrior app. So we will be working towards that, that when, for example, when we have parent conferences coming up, that we'll send out texts and a robocall for the schools so that parents will know the times and the dates. So that was very interesting. That was an interesting revelation from parents. And then we did have 87.5% of parents felt that the teacher understands their child's strengths and their weaknesses. So that was huge. So that's telling me, and this is high school and mid school. So I thought that percentage was extremely important to share because as we know, as the kids get older, that communication isn't quite as tight as it is when SVP and WME have 100% parent-teacher. So I just wanted to let the board know that we will be coming back to the SVP and WME for parent surveys because right now it's about 11% for both schools. And if we have an RMS or an RHS parent that wants to take it as well, that they will have that. It's going to open back up. But that was just our preliminary data. So very pleased with that and for that baseline data and moving forward. So our high five night is going to be. Oh,
Can I
yes,
just-
sir.
Do you have a goal for total response? I see 96. Is that what you had out of?
Yes. So hopefully once SVP and WME, I anticipate that that's going to double or more. So I would say that we would have at least 200 parent responses by the end of the survey. And then hopefully in the spring, as parents understand that their input matters and that we are listening and we are making adjustments, then hopefully that will continue.
Yeah,
to
these are
increase.
great responses and it's
Yeah.
very
Yes.
positive. It's
Yes.
great to see it. It would be great to see a lot more parents participating in this in the same way it would be great to see more parents participating in parent-teacher nights.
Yes.
So I guess that's something we could put on a list of things the board could actually try to exert some influence in if it could figure out how. Text messages for starters. I guess.
Right. So, and I think communicating out to parents, but we value the parents' feedback and the feedback. I mean, there was some, and I didn't give you the actual responses because sometimes they named a teacher that they felt very strongly about or an administrator. And so you don't have the actual responses, but we will be looking at it so we're going to disaggregate it once SVP and WME are complete. So that Ms. Hooker is going to get everything from the mid school. So what was working at the mid school? What do they feel that needs to be improved upon? How do parents, do they feel welcome when they're coming? So all of that information will be shared back to the school because when you take the survey, you're identifying that my child is at SVP or my child is at WME. And if you have a child at all three schools, then we would appreciate it if you would, because it's a different experience at the different schools and fill it out for the schools. So
Have
that
you
data-
noticed any tendency for respondents to self-select as a respondent because they have positive things to say? In other words, the people who have complaints tend not to respond to surveys like this?
So we had some constructive feedback. And so I'm going to say that so there was some really good constructive feedback. So
I guess what I'm saying is this a valid sample if you really wanted to get the negative feedback that would help you to make adjustments.
yes. Yeah. So all feedback is welcome. So positive or negative. And we are trying to get it out. Yes,
Good.
we are trying to get it
Okay.
out.
Thank you.
Yes. But I can't make a parent take a survey.
Of course not.
But I welcome parents taking the survey and we are going to encourage them to take the survey. So, so that's where that stands. And so I will, once we get that final survey results, I'll report back with that. And then just finally, the two words that Ms. Hawk is not wanting to hear in quite some time is school supplies. But I do want to give a final update on school supplies. So it was the American Legion. I apologize, Mark, today I just went blank. And then I got back and I was like, and driving back, I'm like, it's the American Legion. So I'm just going to let you know which organizations gave. So we had the American Legion of Las Cruces that gave backpacks, Redosa Rotary, a Blue Cross Blue Shield. Terry Mann was an individual donor from Artesia. Save the Children, the PED, and then just most recently, the New Mexico PTA contacted us to donate 1,000 books. So I've got to get those picked up. So, I mean, we have had very generous donors. And then along that line too, I just want to also include the Southern Community Foundation on top of the Lincoln Community Foundation that they have been very generous to. So we appreciate everybody that has been so generous to our district.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so we, this is interesting. So, and Secretary Padilla kind of gave us an indication of what happened with this. So our next item is the New Mexico Public Education Department. They had 2 grants. And so Redosa Schools has applied for the out of school time, and that's our after school summer program. And we have applied for that every year. It was first extended learning time, now it's out of school time. And high dosage tutoring was something that we did not apply for. However, starting in about the end of July, we were getting emails about what we were doing with our high dosage tutoring. And so Morgan and I were like, did you apply for high dosage tutoring? No. But we were getting an allocation that we had to get a bar, so for Carmen. And so we finally, I was like, I don't understand this, Morgan. Let's call them. So she arranged a meeting with the PED with both grants, high dosage tutoring and out of school time tutoring. So what we discovered is that the legislature mistakenly did not fund out of school time, which they do believe in, the out of school time program, but they did not fund that. So Redosa Schools received $57,000 of out of school time, which is our after school and summer program. Compared to last year, we received $206,000. And just to reference how much the after school and summer program expenditures were last year, it was $378,000. So we expended the out of school time, 206, and then we dipped into ESSER and other funds. So we were able to have our after school and summer school last year with the out of school time. So, okay, so now this year we only get 57,000. So they misappropriated the funds themselves, which came down to the district. So what they did, because we did not get our allocation for out of school time, is they gave us 206,000. So it's the same amount into the high dosage tutoring program. Except that the high dosage tutoring has stipulations on it. The requirements are, for example, you can only have, as a teacher, you can only have 4 students to tutor.
Is that
Rather
what
than,
makes it high dosage?
yes. And so when you think about that, our after school program, we were running 8 to 10 students, right? So then you limit it to 4. So then how are you going to choose which 4? The equity in it is just not there, right, in the high dosage tutoring. But one of the things that we can do through the high dosage tutoring grant is we can offer tutoring within the school day. So what does that mean? So we could potentially, and we need to take it back to our buildings, back to our teachers, back to the SAC committees, that we could do, we could come back and hire our interventionists at WME, which remember we had to let those go because we didn't have any ESSER funds. But we could bring back the interventionists both at WME for reading and math. We could add a math interventionist at SVP, and we can increase the hours at RMS for the current reading and math interventionist with that 206,000. So that, in my mind, is the best way for all students to have access to an interventionist and to high dosage tutoring. An after school program at 4 to 1, that is very difficult. And then transportation would have to come out of school time, not high dosage. And so there's all of these parameters under high dosage that are not under the out of school time. So I wanted to bring it before the board because this has crushed our after school program. Decimated. And summer school, because they flip-flopped those funds. And Secretary Padilla, when we were up there talking to her, she acknowledged that. So she's very aware of what happened. But I just wanted the board to be aware. that now that bringing it to the board, taking it back to the schools, how we're going to remedy this and how we are going to use those funds to best meet the needs of our kids.
So the after-school program is going on right now.
It
Right.
is not.
It's not, it hasn't
No.
been. Okay. So so you're saying that you're not gonna be able to have a summer program this coming summer?
Right, because we don't have the funds.
Right. But you can start this interventionist
Mhm.
now?
Yes, as soon as we take it. We can put the,
Well, actually, you're just adding
Positions out.
except for Whitemount, right? Because you already have a reading interventionist at SVP, and then
Mhm.
you have interventionists at the middle school, right?
Uh-huh.
So you'd just be adding Whitemount.
yes,
Okay.
and math interventionist at SVP.
Oh,
So-
both.
Because right now we have a reading interventionist. at
Right,
SVP,
okay, yeah,
but we
that's right.
don't have a math interventionist.
So,
Curious.
what,
I'm so
I'm sorry,
I'm-
Dave. Just, so because it's this high dosage tutoring, like, are there stipulations on, like, certain children have to be like at a certain level to attend this or no?
No.
So you can just offer it to everybody across the board?
Or yes, or instruction,
Mm-hmm.
it would be. Skill.
But it could be.
Well, I'm just thinking,
Yes.
in my mind, I'm thinking at Whitemount. Okay, so in their 90-day plan, they are focusing on third graders
Mhm.
that are at a certain level. So would this be something that would target those third graders, or would it be everybody, or?
It could definitely be that. I mean, it could be however we want it, whatever we want it to look like. We can definitely do that.
And that's enough money to get through the rest of the year?
It is.
Okay.
And so that's because they're contractors, right?
Mhm.
So, I think last year, each contractor, it was about 55,000 per contractor. And so you're prorating it. So we could make that work. And then we could increase the time at RMS because they're limited because she had a limited fund in her, grant
Okay,
that she received. So we could increase those hours too
Okay.
and reach more students.
right.
So when we were talking about it with the PED, just thinking, how can we meet the needs of more students? Because that 4-to-1 is very difficult to meet.
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious to know, I mean, it's wonderful that they're going to compensate us for the withdrawal of the money from the program we actually applied for and wanted to operate. Do you have any sense of how much overlap there is between the cohort of students we have served with the summer program, with the time out of school program, and the students who will be served in the high dosage tutoring program once it's started? Is it the same kids to any degree?
It certainly could be. Mhm.
I mean, we just pull students who have attended both programs from the past and see if they're by when. Through SAC that we decide to go with the interventionists to see if there's overlap of those students.
So this happened to everyone,
Yes. And
like all schools?
yes. And so she said that they would be working, she told us that day that she would be working to make sure that that's right sized when they go into session on the 60-day session. Because she said they did not, it was a misintended consequence, of the legislature. They did not mean to do this. They didn't mean to take that away from the out of school time program.
Is
So-
there any magic wand that she could wave that would allow you to spend the high dosage tutoring money if you preferred to do that on time out of school? Instead, anything she could do or any waiver that she could provide, and if not, is there a committee chair or somebody in the legislature who could allow it? I'm just asking. I'm assuming that our preference would have been to have the summer program.
And I'll be honest, I think what happened is someone had a really good idea over here with high dosage tutoring, and then we had out of school time, and this person didn't talk to this person, and then the legislature listened to this person more than they did the out of school time. I mean, I'm just thinking that it was just a miscommunication at the legislative level.
Well, the way I think is might be it might just be a blessing because this will give you your interventionist at White Mountain and it will allow you to expand at the middle school. And I don't know. I just think maybe it's blessing in disguise.
Honestly,
know
we
it's
can
not
reach
fitting-
more students, and we don't have to worry about transportations
Exactly.
because we know that not all students were able to stay after school
Right.
because of transportation.
So I'm gonna look at it that way.
Is it the intent? Do you think it's the intent of the PED to offer both of them in the future?
I do. I absolutely do.
Is it a,
Mhm.
can you apply for both of them?
Well, now that we know, we will.
So yes, like
Yes.
it's
Mhm.
conceivable we could have in the
Yes.
future, if they fund them both, we could
Yes.
get both grants.
Yes.
So it would be nice if we reinstate the interventionist to not flip flop again next year.
Yeah,
For consistency.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I hope that clears up. We just were trying to figure out why we were getting emails that we were a grant that we did not apply for that we were getting funded for. So that's what came from that. So,
All right.
so like I said, we'll take that back to SAC teams and SAC committees. High Five Night is going to be next Wednesday. I believe that's the October 16th at 6 p.m. at the Convention Center. And just to let the board know, what we're doing is we're recognizing students that have scored advanced in either English language arts or math or science. Or we have some students that scored advanced in English and math. And so we have 172 students that are going to be recognized that night. And something new that we're doing is we are going to be recognizing our classroom teachers that have in their classroom achieved greater than the state average in either ELA, math, or both. So we have 28 teachers that we'll be recognizing. So I hope that all of you can be there.
I will be there. That's in my calendar.
Thank you.
I need a text message, by the way. I just want to bring that out.
So we can
Anybody,
just
text
remember.
me. Text me, please.
And so
Multiple times.
Yeah. Yes. And so we're super excited about High Five Night. It's at the Convention Center and we are anticipating more than 500. It'll probably be standing room only with that. So, okay. And then finally talking about the monitoring calendar.
Ms. Ferguson,
Oh, I'm
can
sorry.
we get our student liaison in here before we get into that?
Oh,
'Cause I think
also-
that'll be-
Yes.
FEMA
Okay.
land use.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I apologize. You should have been on top of that. I apologize. Can we-
Yes.
It's Spirit Week as well.
Yes.
Today was twin
We
day.
should have dressed up.
Do I look at the?
Okay, I don't know how to start. Sorry. Miss Bird's not here. She forgot she forgot we had a school board meeting today because it's been a very busy week. But I would like to start with our school activities that we had. So we have hosted 2 dance workshops so far at the high school where we taught students during lunch to come learn how to do line dances and stuff like that for the upcoming homecoming dance this Saturday. We also plan to have another one this Thursday, and we have this lovely lady named Andrea coming to help us. Yesterday, she taught us how to do this disco line dance, and it was really fun. Next, to go over our drug awareness week, we talked about it last meeting, but it hadn't happened yet. And so this week, we have more feedback about it. Students participated in a Simple Spirit Week to show, and I guess kind of to show in support of being drug and substance free. We also had every day on the morning announcements, we had facts about the harm that drugs and alcohol cause to your body and how it impacts a person's life and how many deaths it causes a year every single day on the announcements during our drug awareness week. We also collaborated with the Student-Based Health Center to inform students about substance abuse. And they also had help pamphlets and information on how to get help and like all these fun facts during our drug fair we had Monday, September 23rd. And we also had Minute to Win It games where students could like play games during lunch and have something to do just instead of just sitting around. And lastly, Miss Laura Wilson with the Department of Health presented to all the freshmen in Mr. Patterson's room, and they also presented to the upperclassmen in Ms. Ames Brown's room. Lastly, it is our homecoming week this week. So yesterday's theme was Woody's Roundup, so it was Cowboys versus Martians, and we also like to give a color option in case like people don't really like to dress up, but they still want to participate. So yesterday's color was black. Today was Tweedledee and Tweedledum Duo Day or Twin Day. So people dressed up as a favorite duo or twin or wear purple. Tomorrow's day is class, what's your story? So it's class dress day. So freshmen are going to wear red, sophomores green, juniors blue, and seniors are going to wear pink. And it's supposed to be head to toe. So hopefully people go all out. This one's pretty easy because each grade has their own color. Thursday is going to be Tangled versus Sleeping Beauty, so it'll be pajama and crazy hair day. I'm not quite sure what color it is. I didn't write that down. And then Friday, yeah, I think it might be yellow. And then Friday is Rock Your Mocks, which is warrior wear, and you wear your moms and rock your mocks. And then tomorrow night we will have our bonfire by the Kids Connection like we did last year. And I believe it starts at 7, but I am not sure. 6:30. Thank you. And then we also have our football game on Friday, and we also have our pep rally at 12 if you guys would like to go.
Yeah, that's a good.
On Friday?
It's fun.
The pep
Yes,
rally is
Friday, October 11th at 12. It starts at 12.
Excellent.
Really fun. Oh, and lastly, our homecoming dance theme this year is Tangled, so it is Rapunzel themed. And we've been working on our decorations, and we have lots of lanterns and pinks and purples and yellows, just like the Tangled themed. And we're super excited. Student Council and hopefully NHS are going to decorate this Saturday and Friday, a little bit after school, but not much because we do have that football.
Where's the dance at?
And the cafeteria, the school cafeteria. And we usually decorate it very nicely. So it doesn't even look like the cafeteria. It's really cool.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Moving on to student council initiatives. Student council held a face painting station at the volleyball game October 3rd. We took donations, like, donate as much as you could. You didn't have to donate to get your face painted, but we took donations, and those donations went towards our local pink fund, which help locals who are fighting breast cancer. Next, we helped Luther pick some pears for the food bank on September 20th, and we had to think about 8 student council members go help, and they picked tons of pears. And we also
quite literally, possibly a ton of pears.
Yeah. And we also plan to help pick apples for the orchard down there, but we haven't quite figured. I think we wanted to do
The
it.
16th.
Yes. Yes. We talked about it, and we are also going to talk about it tomorrow at our student council meeting to get a sign-up sheet for those who can come help. Next, we also plan to help with the Toss No Moss fundraiser on October 20th, and we will be cleaning up Grindstone on November 5th. Student council, we plan to go to district conference October 23rd. It is in Artesia, and district conference, we were able to take 30 students this year, and we had all 30 sign up. So it's really nice because we have members, representatives, and executive board going to district on the 23rd.
Great.
And admin reported that parent-teacher conferences were very successful, and the quarter ends this week. Okay, thank you. And then moving on to club reports, we only have 2 club reports this meeting. So we have Indian Club report. So we have a new Native American liaison. Her name is Miss Torres at RHS, and she's also sponsoring the Indian Club. They are going over Native American Heritage Month ideas this week and this month, and they are also participating in the pep rally with a couple traditional songs. They're going to have athletes come down and dance, and then they're going to invite the whole school to come down and dance, just kind of how we did it last year. And they are also having their princess and their warrior pageant on November 1st. And our last club report is Teacher Academy and Educators Rising. So Teacher Academy is setting up a tutoring and intern schedules at RMS and RHS. High school teachers are asking Teacher Academy kids to teach lessons. They are also preparing a program of work to submit to the state Educators Rising organization. A team of 6 leaders and Lily, our New Mexico State secretary for the Educators Rising, is going to Roswell for a leadership conference on October 22nd, and their September hospitality group is wrapping up their work in the education lab and sending a teacher appreciation gifts to all RMS teachers. And that is it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
That was
Thank
great.
you so much.
That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Very good. Very thorough.
And speaking of homecoming, we are assured that the parking lot will be acceptable for parking on Friday.
Good.
Yay. That's what we heard. So going back to my report, so I wanted to let the board know that FEMA representatives approached Ruidoso Municipal Schools regarding the land over on Gavilan. So currently, this is in the beginning stages. So they met with Gordy, myself, Mark, Luther, and talking about the possibility of placing 30 brand new 14 by 40 mobile homes on our property over on Gavilan. Part of that would be they would be responsible for electricity being pulled, the sewage, as well as water, getting access to water. So they've gone out to the property, as I understand, right, 40, and they have marked off 5 acres. And what they're wanting to do is just take a look at the site and determine if that is something that FEMA is wanting to do. So the good thing about this for the district is, number one, we're helping our community with 30 units. This is not long-term. They basically have 24 months from the time of the fire, so that's June 20th, to offer this. So we had to be ready to go if they so choose our property, because time is ticking, right,
This
for
is for
everybody.
displaced families or?
Yes, displaced
individuals?
families. And it's 24 months, so it's not long-term, but it is helping.
There's
some-
actually
helping our
18
families.
months with the potential of an extension.
Yes,
One.
And these are people who are now in motels?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
wherever.
yes.
they can find.
And this comes with, they're fully furnished. They have brand new appliances. So this would be something that would be super.
So what happens after the
Mm.
24 months?
So that's what's interesting. So after 24 months, FEMA is required to remove the housing that has been there. And the district would have an opportunity, once it's removed, if we wanted to bid, to go out to bid on those units, to bring them back. But they physically have to remove them by federal law. Am I missing anything on that, Mark or Luther, that from
You
that
got it.
conversation?
Yeah, you got it. I'd add, it's interesting. They approached us.
Mhm.
They needed 5 acres. If it meets their needs, it's fully fenced. They have somebody that lives on site 24/7, so it's secure,
Wow.
et cetera. At the end of the period of time, yes, they have to pull the modulars off there, and they auction them off. The residents get first shot at them, and then they go to public auction. Yes, we could we could bid on them and potentially bring them back, but they'll do everything is to put every single rock back into place that to make it look like it was. They'll take all the utility infrastructure out or not.
No.
What I see is potentially a win-win, and that this is our land, and we've talked about acreage up there, and it
Yes.
is, and we have Gordy's actually got some drawings and some plans, and they're
Yeah.
putting it based on where Gordy sees a potential teacher housing.
Right.
And they have to deal with the village, or they will deal with the village. We're in the county, but they're going to deal with the village and trying to get Village water, village sewer up there. They'll do with P&M to bring up power. They'll put it above ground. They'll put it underground if we want. They'll do what we want it to do. And in the end, we're going to come out of it. If it meets their needs, we can come out with water and sewer extensions up there.
That's what I was thinking.
So
Even if they pull them, you still have all your infrastructure
Yes,
for your utilities and
do.
stuff.
mhm.
And we provided a service for families that are displaced.
Yes,
So
So do they, I don't mean this to sound the wrong way, but do they pay the school for the use of the land or no?
they do. We
Do they?
have to, they will, there's a formula as I understand it. I don't know what the
yeah,
formula is.
it won't
but-
be a huge amount of money,
Yes.
but yes, they will pay a monthly rental. rate
Wow.
for the land. At least it's in the generic contract that I read that they presented that day.
And the families get to stay there for free? Or do they pay rent?
I don't
No,
remember.
it's for free for that amount of time.
Wow.
That's what I understood.
As
Where
of,
exactly is the land? I'm trying to picture it in relation, say, to the softball field, or Brady's, compound there.
it's
Right?
north of the middle school.
Oh, it's north of.
Yes.
It's like, you know, when you sit at the middle school and look over the gym from the bus barn
Yeah.
and you see the like big burned out area where they're clearing trees, it's
Got it.
all of that, 70 acres up there.
Yeah, that's a very promising thing.
As
It's
of,
a win-win, like you said.
Yes,
Yes.
it's a win for our community. It's a win for
Yeah.
the district. And now, if this, now we're just hoping, is it going to come to
back,
fruition?
Yeah.
Right. So, but
as of last night, at another meeting that I was involved in with FEMA, there are 60 families that would qualify for these
Mhm.
homes. So they're looking for these 30 and they're actually looking other places for other setups similar to this.
Wow.
Any Village of Ruidoso planning and zoning issues or potential?
It's in the county.
Neighbor pushbacks or, oh, okay.
we're in the county.
Probably
No.
not in that, 77 acres is pretty big where Gordy's picked it out. So that land, Dave, it's north of middle school between Warrior Drive and Gavilan Canyon up to where, where T.L. George's place is. And he's got that RV park and whatnot. That's the 77 acres, big rectangle in the county. There's an access easement that goes through T.L. George's property and pops out by the cemetery. So it's a dedicated easement. They'll improve the road down there. They'll maintain the road.
And it's on the, as you're going north, it's on the right-hand side?
Left.
The left-hand side, I guess.
Love to
I
take
like
you
it.
out there, Dave, and show you. It's beautiful.
But I was just say it's tucked back in there. You don't really see it from the middle school. You don't see it from the homes along Gavilan Canyon. The neighbor would be T.L. George's RV park, basically. So it's tucked away. It's an in my opinion, it's an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the cost to extend utilities up there would be,
A lot.
significant,
Mhm.
measurable, and we're not dealing with a lot of disposable income right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, that's a good.
it's positive. So
Yes.
But I do
Oh,
want to
this is
let the
the
board know
school.
that this is in a very preliminary stage. Yes,
Right here.
we're not sure.
Have they talked about a timeline though?
Well, their timeline, if they get everything approved, is right away
Is that
within
in
8
this area?
weeks.
Whoa.
they have it all done. He said 6 to 8 weeks.
Really?
Habitable houses on site within 6 to 8.
Oh, wow.
And this group of people we met with, this is what they do. They go all over the country and build these exact things in places and then tear them out 18 months later and move on.
Wow. Well, that's good.
There's probably a lot going in the stuff right now, I suspect.
Oh, no kidding.
So my final, this is our first monitoring calendar, looking at goal number 1, BOY data review, and this is just strictly for reading. And so before we even begin, as we have moved through this strategic plan, through this process, we know that we have set the ground or the goals for the next 3 years for reading and for math. With that being said, I would just compare this to a coach's football team. So he's the coach and he knows what the plays are going to have to be in order for the team to succeed, right? So that's kind of where we are as a district. So what are we doing? The principals are the coaches. Like we're the owners and they're the coaches, right? So we know that we want to win, right? And so what are we going to do to win? And what are we going to do to move our students forward? So when we're looking at the beginning of the year data, some of the things that they're going to showcase, I've asked each principal to bring to the table. But what I noticed when I'm looking at the data at SVP, what I see at SVP, and Ms. Valley can correct me, but I see that grade level from year to year that we are showing an increase overall, as well as WME and RMS. So on the BOY. Now, that is third grade to comparing third grade to third grade in reading, comparing fourth grade to fourth grade in reading a year out. But when we start looking at the cohorts, that's when we see that there is definitely a summer regression in the data. And so if a class, let's say if they concluded the year at 45% proficient and they're coming into the BOY and they're only 35% proficient, correct? So when you're looking at that, those are the two different stories that you can tell. So we can look at grade to grade, third grade to third grade each year, or we can look at the cohort moving forward. And Luther today had a really good suggestion on identifying the class of like 35, right? So to put that in there so that we can look at those cohorts a little bit easier, not only for you, but for us too, right? To keep track of of that cohort data, because we are accumulating the data, right? So we've got some really good data to be reviewing. So as we are moving forward, I would like the story to be told. So one of the things to tell the story, because the data is very raw and it's just data, right? But there's a story behind it. So what we have done, and this was in your board handouts, is as a district, so it's consistent. It's at SVP, WME, RMS, and RHS. So the story is going to be told through the 3 questions that you had in your packet. And each of the questions was derives from what the superintendent's guardrails, right, that relate to the board goals. And with that, question number 1, what specific strategies or interventions outlined in your 90-day plan are being implemented to support student growth in reading proficiency? And how are these strategies being monitored for effectiveness? So this is the beginning, right? So this is the beginning of the story for the next 3 years. These same 3 questions are going to be asked at BOY, MOY, and EOY to tell the story, because we're going to be seeing, is it working? And if it's not, what are we doing within our story to change it so that we can move students forward? The second question, so the first question revolves around our 90-day plan. And our 90-day plan is our continuous improvement model. And that is, we develop one in the fall, and then after we see how the students do on the MOY, then we create our spring 90-day plan. So the second question is talking about the superintendent's guardrails. So this specific question is, how is your school ensuring alignment between instructional practices and the superintendent's guardrails to foster a school-wide culture of literacy and reading achievement? So this is going to my evaluation, which is the guardrails, right? Like, what are we doing to make sure that we are doing that? And so that question is not going to change. What are you doing each and every time that are meeting the guardrails that we have adopted? And then the final question is the measurement of the data. So the third question is, what measurable progress or key milestones has your school achieved in improving reading proficiency, and what adjustments are being made based on the data collected from assessments and classroom performance? So those 3 questions are going to tell the story for the next 3 years. I asked the principals, make sure that the questions as presented to you are, that you feel that they are valid, tied to the district goal, tied to the guardrails, tied to the 90-day plan, so that moving forward that we're able to tell this story. So each report, the schools will be answering these 3 questions as we move forward. So with that being said, you have access to the story that's being told right now of the 3 questions. But at this time, I would like to defer for a short. We don't have a PowerPoint, and it's just going to be, I asked them to keep it tight. So when we're talking about student outcomes and reporting to the board, they will be reporting out to you through the story that's being told with the 3 questions. In addition to that, they will be reporting out at the board meeting. So with that, I would like Ms. Powell. Please,
You're on the clock, Miss Pally.
Okay. Good evening, President Beatty and the board and Superintendent Ferguson. This is SVP's playbook, as you made the analogy. Our first round of data for our beginning of the year just happened in September. So we don't have new data yet, but we're very close. In a week, we will then have our second data point on iStation. This is what our data shows. We are in reading. This is going to be talking about reading. In kindergarten, we have 32% of our students on grade level at this time. This is our starting point. So this is where we will grow. This is our beginning plot on the data plot. And then in first grade, we have 20% of students on grade level, and in second grade, 12%. And the 12% always that hits me. But one thing we do need to know is on iStation in kindergarten and first grade, they assess phonemic awareness, hearing sounds, rhyming, those types of things. And when they move to second grade, the bar is set higher. Now they're working on text fluency and comprehension. So that often is why you see a smaller percentage. And how we're addressing that at SVP is we have a vertical team. We've had lots of vertical conversations, and we're getting ready to put it in a school-wide document so we can close the gaps. In other words, first grade now needs to address what second grade is going to see at the beginning of the year so we can close those gaps. As far as some of the things that are going on that are exciting, we just had the May Center come to SVP. They've been at SVP before in a coaching role, and they will continue that role because it's very beneficial. But one of the things I asked them to do was to get into intervention, because at SVP, we're doing our PLT, which is a professional learning team, and the whole cycle of instruction. We're looking at our New Mexico standards. We're really looking deeply at them. We're differentiating between our priority and our supporting standards. And then at that point, the teachers are making decisions about how will students demonstrate this in the classroom with rigor, and then how will they measure it? So they have soft data points. They're called common formative assessments. And those soft data points, it's not a test. It could be a teacher is watching students demonstrate learning and they have a checklist, right? So it's simple. And then the big thing that we're working on is the responsiveness to that data. So we have this whole process in place. We're going to the next step, which is to be responsive to the data. And that is going to be through intervention. So the May Center came and they brought intervention strategies directly tied to our current data. And they showed the teachers in real time what it would look like. They even had a group of teachers that were the students, right, to model this. And then they will come back and coach to make sure that those things are implemented into the classroom. That's our K through 2, and then our pre-K, of course, on their literacy strategies, they're working with New Mexico PBC, which is coaching individualized for pre-K and the pre-K model. They're working on oracy, language, phonemic awareness, which is also what our kindergarten and first are working on. And then our second working on, of course, comprehension and reading passages quickly so that they can have enough brain power, right, to understand what's being read. That's just the developmental stage of reading there. We also want to make sure all of our populations are covered. So Dr. Edmister is really gracious in getting some very high quality professional development for our EL learners, which is not just good for EL, but for all students. So we've had WIDA and GLAD. And then we also have our STAR coming in to work with our SPED teachers who are also running small intervention groups within their classroom. So that encompasses all students. The two things that we're going to are we're now going to be creating scales and rubrics for students so that teachers are defining what it looks like when a student knows that in detail. And then, of course, we're working on our vertical alignment piece to shore that up. And let's see, what else was I going to talk about? Oh, well, and then one of the things that the teachers have been doing is, I don't know if you remember, but in previous board meetings, I talked about they chose instructional strategies that were important to them to learn about, and each teacher got to choose. We have something called Modeling Monday, and that is not on the runway. It is actually teachers in a collaboration time showing and demonstrating how they would teach these strategies in their classroom to their peers. And then peers have a chance to ask questions and say, hey, I need that resource. It's been actually my favorite day to go watch because the teachers are really doing an excellent job. So they've taken their instructional strategy, they've assimilated it, and now they're pushing it out to their peers with the idea that everyone has several instructional strategies that they can draw off of. And then, of course, it is elementary school. So it's important that we have high attendance because none of this matters if the kids aren't there. So we have lots of things in place. Our positive office referrals are continuing. That's a huge thing on Friday. We have our school store for kids following the positive expectations on Thursday and Friday. And then, of course, we're trying to mimic Spirit Week on a little bit of a lower level because we can't outdo the high school. So we're doing things like that so that students will be present in class. Any questions?
Thank you.
I have one question.
Sure.
You talk about the May Center coming in and I guess also training for ELL students. Is the coaching with that? Do they coach you and the assistant principal as well to be able to oversee that further down the line? Like, so you know what to look for to help facilitate that continuing?
Yes. So one of the things that happens is Ms. Jensen and I both receive coaching actually from the assistant superintendent at Belen Schools. And so we receive that coaching. As far as the May Center, they are doing strategies that I've actually implemented in other districts. So luckily I have a knowledge base there, but they have a planning meeting before, and then we have a planning meeting after they are with the teachers. And then we also have communication in between the coaching sessions. They also provide us written documentation of goals and how they're met.
And of all this that is being implemented, I know the May Center was there last year doing some coaching. How much of this is new?
This is completely different.
Completely
So
new?
it's the same people, okay?
Right.
And they're excellent and they know their strategies. What's different is last year when they went in kind of observed and gave some feedback on what they would like to see in class. And there's some of that happening. But what I switched in last March and April is I had the teachers email ahead of time exactly what they needed. What type of coaching, were they going to co-teach a lesson, and exactly what the teacher's individual goal was for his or her classroom. And then now we've switched to, we are looking at data, but we don't want data to sit on a shelf. We want to be responsive to the data. So they are working this year solely on intervention strategies to meet the individual needs of kids.
Okay, thank you.
So it's evolved.
Thinking about both attendance and participation in parent-teacher conferences, it just occurred to me that you really are the gateway to all of that. This is our first chance to impress parents with the usefulness and benefit to their children of getting involved and meeting the teachers and getting to know what's happening. So when we get to the point of developing a board program, which I hope we do, of trying to increase that, it seems to me that we'll be coming to you to figure out ways that none of us have thought of before to make those experiences great for parents.
Yeah, it's an honor, and we do love to partner with our parents. We have a small but mighty pack committee, a parent committee that has great ideas that we're implementing really quickly. But they're very strong and have lots of follow through. So it's been a fun adventure already.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Ms.
Thank
Nesbitt,
you.
WB.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Ferguson. I'm going to take a different kind of approach tonight. I'm going to address student learning and adult teacher behavior and what we're actually doing in the classrooms. If you'll take a look at our data, it does show that our third grade are 15% proficient in reading, our fourth 24, and our fifth 39. And of course, this is just raw data. But right now, if you go ahead and read our my narrative, we're focusing on third grade. We're showcasing third grade with that 15%. So whenever we started looking at those third graders, we found that 10 third graders are at the pre-primer or the kinder level. So we had to like back up and just tear our whole system apart. And our art music teacher and our PE teacher found time in their schedule 4 times a week at 20 minutes to provide an intensive intervention with those students. With this intervention, it's targeted instruction, segmenting sounds, phonemic awareness, letter and word attack skills. Of course, grades 4 and 5 are still doing small intervention groups in their classroom, but right now, third grade is what we are showcasing with that reading. We're starting to see a little bit of improvement. We're finding that there's so many, of course, different learning styles, you know, the chunking the words, the phonemic kids, those that have to make the little boxes and write it out. There's just so many different levels of learning, but they're excited and they're ready to learn. So changing the adult teacher behavior, I've got to give a shout out to my assistant, Jessica Trujillo. She looked at our schedule, and she was able to find an hour and 20 minutes 3 times a week that our teachers could meet. Like third grade meets on Monday, second on Tuesday, and then fifth on Thursday for our PLTs. And inside these PLTs, we do our unit planning and strategies for instruction. Ms. Trujillo and I are getting out, we're doing daily teacher observations, and we're giving immediate feedback. The feedback is what's driving our PDs on Wednesday. A lot of things that we're looking at right now are opportunity for engagement, engaging the students more, depth of knowledge, higher order questioning. We've had 2 great sessions on that. And that's pretty much where we are. The high dosage tutoring would be absolutely perfect for White Mountain to break down that teacher to student ratio and meet more kids at their level and push them harder. So, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you much.
Board Member Beatty, members of the board, and Superintendent Ferguson. I'm excited to tell RMS's beginning of the year story. We have seen some growth in some areas that I've been excited about. So last year, our 6th graders began the year at 17% proficient. This year, our 6th graders began 31% proficient. So that's a profound change already, just in the beginning of the year. And as Superintendent Ferguson mentioned, the learning loss is down. So as I look at the numbers, we're in the range between about 7 to 12% of learning loss from the end of the year last year in a cohort group to the beginning of the year this year. Some of those numbers in previous years have been 18% learning loss or 38% learning loss. So being able to decrease that through the summer is a wonderful, wonderful thing. 7th and 8th graders are coming into the beginning of the year about the same as they were last year. So we are seeing about the same there, but the real improvement is with our 6th grade that we have noticed. So in telling our story on the 3 questions, the 90-day plan, as far as our specific strategies, we are adhering to the superintendent guardrails as far as increasing our student engagement. We are also specifically at our school looking at English language development strategies. One of the strategies that we have brought in to help our teachers with that is our ELL mentors, Miss Magana and Miss Robinson. So they are coming into the classrooms and helping the teachers with that and giving them some feedback from those walkthroughs. We're measuring that through our teacher action plans that document the data from those walkthroughs and from the common formative assessments. As far as our instructional practices, again, we are looking to increase that student engagement. We are looking at literacy standards in every single content area, in addition to reading. And we are also looking at writing proficiency in every single area. One of those is every 3 weeks, we do a race writing. So it's a consistent writing prompt that the students are being able to use in their classes. And the last, as far as measurable progress, we are looking at vocabulary in every single classroom through our common formative assessments, our teacher action plans, and our layer 2 interventions. So that's working directly with the students who have not performed well with their standards on their common formative assessments. So I'll take any questions that you may have.
You said that you had, and this is, I'm sorry, this is I guess a technical question, but you said you had only about a 7% drop cohort from end of last year to 7-ish%. I'm just curious where I'm seeing like last spring, the end of year was 48, and the end of year for 7th grade was 48%. The beginning of year for 8th grade is 36. Is that where are you doing your cohort drops from? Are you doing them from the summative assessments or from
What we're looking at is the end of year then of last year to the beginning of the year this year.
the end of year assessment? So 23-24 is 48% end of year for 7th grade. Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, so we're looking at 48,
To
then
then
the
they jump to
36.
36?
Mhm.
Okay.
And so being able to close that learning loss over the summers.
And I believe you had, last year you were doing vocabulary and all the, across the whole school. I remember the art teacher working on vocabulary. So that was a successful program. You think that was?
It is, and I'm glad you asked that question. As far as the success with working on the vocabulary strategies, when we looked at our ELL summative scores over the past 2 years, we have had gains. And if I may, we had a 23% gain in 2 years with our ELL, specifically in literacy. With our 6th graders, 23% gain, our 7th graders, a 30% gain, and our 8th graders, a 25% gain. Being able to focus in on those vocabulary strategies.
You attribute that to the?
I do, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
President Beatty, board members, Superintendent Ferguson, I have my timer set for 3 minutes because what I was told. So I don't have the same springboard that my sister schools have in terms of having a BOY, MOY, and EOY data. We do have our junior data, which drives a lot of what we do. But what we've learned is that the board goals and the superintendent guardrails are really fitting well with our 90-day plan, or our 90-day plans fitting to that, and what we're doing with our unit plans. So we're basically creating our own data to follow, and hopefully we'll be able to report more numbers in the future. But basically what we're doing in terms of the 90-day plan is our 90-day plan is focused on systems and leadership. So we're really basically working on our PLT process, which is hand in hand with our superintendent guardrails. Through that process and through vertical alignment and our team really digging in and buying into this PLT process, the English department has created a unified short answer response. Kind of like, I think yours is ACE or RACE. So what we found was our departments were all over the place on expectations on how to write a short answer response. So the
English department took it upon themselves. They created one that's really user friendly, not just for the kids, but for the grown-ups. And these strategies are being monitored for their effectiveness through our Plan, Do, Study, Act model of our unit plan and our PLT time. So we're looking at it now, but we'll be looking at it as these more units are done. In terms of our school-wide culture of literacy and reading achievement, again, this is all happening out of our PLT time. We're basically assigning a strategy to all departments, and then we're also allowing teacher autonomy to the departments are choosing their own strategy. So they're working on two strategies basically per month. We're leaning heavily on Teach Like a Champion. It's a tried and true guide for us. And then we're doing reflection on the effectiveness of these strategies. So we're getting new strategies. We're getting old strategies done better, and maybe old strategies just done. So we're seeing those more in walkthroughs. We're able to document that we're seeing them, and we're seeing them more often. These strategies emphasize literacy and enhance comprehension and critical thinking. And lastly, key milestones. Again, I don't have the kind of data that my sister schools have, but the English department reports anecdotal evidence that this unified short answer response is improving reading and writing skills across everything. Science has jumped in full-fledged and is using it as well. So we're going to do data 2 review tomorrow. So I would know more if it was next week to be able to tell you, to see if we've had a pretty good improvement from our unit 1s to our unit 2s. What we're hoping to see is improvement unit per unit on those pieces of the standards that the writing prompt adheres to. What do I want to tell you? Just kind of to echo Ms. Nesbitt, of course we're focusing on the kids and their outcomes, but you got to always change adult behavior to get student improved outcomes. So I just want to thank the board and Superintendent Ferguson and my admin team for coming together to do a unified approach, because I think this is the best it's felt in terms of positively impacting student achievement, being unified, having a plan, and moving forward with that plan, starting with you guys and your goals, the guardrails, then the solution tree push for improving PLTs. Hold on tight. I think you're going to see a lot of good things coming in the future. I went over 3 minutes. I apologize, but I will stand for questions. I turned it off.
Just one question from me anyway. Do you have a thumbnail description of your short answer response?
It's a teacup. So I wish I had it with me, but it's a TEA and it's in a teacup. And it's just I think I can't remember, to be honest with you. If I should have brought it with me, I should have been prepared for that question. But basically it's TEA. It's in a cute little teacup. It's pretty easy to teach and easy to follow with just like a RACE or an ACE or CEC
It's
or
an
anything.
acronym, in
Yes.
other words.
Yes.
That helps us figure.
I know the E is evidence. Always. The E is always evidence. Got to have text evidence to support your answer.
I'll ask at home about it.
I'll bring it to you. Yeah, ask at home about it. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I guess the unit assessments, is that, like, what's an example of a unit assessment?
So unit assessments are classroom and teacher and content specific. We don't have a common formative assessment like everybody else does in the high school. So basically what we're doing with the unit plans is we're getting very, very intentional with focusing on our priority standards and writing questions and doing checks for understanding before a unit assessment. And a unit assessment is a summative assessment at the end of the unit that is going to, it may have a few, like a typical unit assessment might have a few like level 1 type questions that you wanted to see if they know, but the intent is to focus our questioning on what's going to actually address with it they have mastered or become proficient in the standard that we've been teaching in this unit. Does that make sense?
Yes, but if you're looking at growth, if you're looking to see growth from unit 1 to unit 2, you're looking for the
So,
the answer, like how the answer is crafted, regardless of what the answer is about?
so it's basically more of a proficiency, and this is all in the beginning steps, because my next goal is to write rubrics on what proficiency looks like and getting there. But right now we're just really doing baby steps, spoon feeding, if you will, just to get used to the process. So basically, board members, what we're doing is creating a data protocol. And so each individual teacher, and they work with their department, fills in the data protocol for each unit. So remember, like, it might look like you've got all your kids in the classroom, right, and that you're teaching. And then you've got, basically, think of it as a rubric almost for the data protocol, that they've almost got it, they can teach it, kind of thing. So you're capturing whether they've got it or not. That also helps with reteaching. So if you review your unit test assessment and you plug in your data into your data protocol, it gives you a picture as a teacher of what they got and what they didn't get. So what might need to, to circle back around in the next unit to reteach.
So like it's very easy for me to see the beginning of year to end of year stuff from the lower schools. So when this all centers out in your mind over the next quarter, I guess?
I hope that we start seeing
Okay.
something in the
Half year, whatever, like what can we, like, I would be very interested to see how you compare one data point to the next.
Right, and it's very difficult at the high school because
Yeah,
we don't have this,
I
we don't
understand
have a
that.
CFA at all. But what we're trying to do more than anything, and actually ours will probably be a wider lookout, because what we're trying to do, really, to be completely honest, is to get better at standards. So I won't know for a while. If we teach a standard here, we might not know for a long time how that standard goes, but I will start getting the data for the standard progression.
Okay.
Which is kind of what we're hoping in the longer term. Once we get good at doing the PDSA, and we get good at creating better assessments, frankly, and we get good at tracking that, then we're going to move on to really squeezing down and focusing on what is proficient. We're going to have to learn how to do some rubrics and some rubric building on just what is proficient. Then you take that and you build even further. So what I'm hoping is to get just better and better at making sure that what we're asking students to do to show proficiency is in fact proficiency on any given standard.
So we're covering reading this time, and I like reading is in most parts of everything you teach at the high school. So it seems you could get some indication of how the students are improving in reading. And I know we're not supposed to talk about math. Is this going to be harder for, I'm going to ask about math anyway. Is this going to be harder for math?
No.
Okay.
It'll just look different than what it's going to look like, because they're jumping all in. Just the standard review and identifying power standards has been a real big eye opener for all the departments, but especially the math department. We joke, the big joke at PLTs is we got to get rid of our pinata lessons. Those are our fun lessons that we like to teach that are kind of easygoing, but may or may not be tied to a standard, and they're not tied to a power standard. And so buckling down, I think, is really where we are on adult actions to teach what is expected to be taught. So the coup de grace member light will honestly be also on our SAT, because if we're doing a better job in the classroom on the day-to-day, and they can analyze a question and answer it, then it should start showing on when they do take a test that we do have more standardized questions and data on. So again, we're a little bit further out. We don't have the luxury of a hardcore BOY, MOY, EOY, but we're going to be able to start giving you more data on what we're doing. And so keep asking, and we'll start providing for you what you want to see to the best of our ability. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
Mark, I went over 3 minutes because of Luther.
I know.
No, your 3 minutes stopped when you said I will stand for questions. I get all the time in the world.
So I know that this was our very first monitoring review. Looking at the data, I hope that the story played out so that there's a better understanding of what at the end of the day, proficiency matters, right? At the end of the day, growth matters. And so it's what everybody is doing in the different schools to make sure that that is taking place. So it's the skills, just like a football team, it's the skills that are being conducted on the day-to-day basis that's going to increase that proficiency. But I stand for questions on the monitoring.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to say that I am very encouraged by everyone's information. The information that's in here, your story is, it will be very interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, we are in the beginning stages of this, and so I hope that the staff is excited about it. I hope that they are like behind it and wanting to, you know, do better. And, you know, like you said in the high school, trying to get them more focused on, you know, lessons that really matter in the end, not that just feel good, you know, but I don't know. I think that I think that everyone is doing a good job trying to get behind these student outcomes and show us what is happening in the school, you know. And maybe when we come visit the high school, you can show us better what you're talking about with the little questions that you're doing and stuff like that. Because a lot of this is Greek to me. One of the things that we had talked about was that it should be dumbed down a little bit for people like us, that all these acronyms and all this stuff. So, but you know, I'm starting to learn. So, thank you for providing all this.
And it'll be consistent. So the 3 questions are not changing.
Right.
And that's in all fairness to the goal, right? So we are going to continue with that. So I hope that the story continues to unfold. And so we will be making adjustments, of course, as you go, but I think that it'll be a good history for the school, for the district, on how that is being accomplished. And I do appreciate that it is a district initiative, but it can only come from the board, right? So it's coming down from the board as a district initiative, down to the administration, down to the teachers, down to the students. Because like I was mentioning to board member Tomlin earlier, is that behind every percentage point, that is a student. Those are students that we're talking about. So at this level, we're talking about the overall. But when it gets down to the first grade teacher, the history teacher at the high school, we're talking about how students are performing in those classrooms. So
one thing I noticed is and I don't know if I'm sure you have it, but like the different breakdown of the different student, I guess you call them cohorts, you know, like if they are a homeless child or if they are
yes, the demographic
of them. So is there a way to get that data?
We
and
have that
look at
data
that?
and it's in our 90-day plans, but I did not want to overwhelm you on our first monitoring
Okay.
goal with that data. But yes, that is part in the 90-day plans. We are looking at those specific cohorts. For example, mid-school is looking at their English learners, right? Because they're in designation.
Exactly.
But we have the data of our special education students, of our Native American English learners, those students. Excuse me?
The lower,
Yes.
Socio.
And then, are economically disadvantaged.
Mhm.
So when we create our 90-day plans, that is part of the 90-day plan, is to address the patterns that we're seeing year to year. So.
And if I can interject there, the coach just today actually said that starting out with just grade breakdown
Overall.
is a good way to approach this from as a board, because when you start breaking it in each grade into 6 different demographics units, it gets really complicated really fast, and it's very hard to visually display. So like as we move forward and as the board feels fully comfortable with this data, then they can pull in more demographic data. And I suspect we'll see that probably first in the middle school, because we're concentrating a fair amount on the ELL program there.
I
this
feel
year.
very strongly by the time we get to the summative data for this next year of 2025, that when we give you, bring that to the table on our summative, that the board at that time that you guys will have after, you've been, all of this has been going on, that you're going to be ready for it. And when we're looking at that summative data, we can look at it from last year to this year and those demographic groups. I think that's going to be, you'll be ready for that.
A
Yes.
full cycle will be,
What's that?
a full cycle will be nice. I agree.
Yes.
I guess if you don't have any other questions for the superintendent, I was gonna do a quick postmortem on, and
I
maybe,
have one.
okay, go
Yes,
for
sir.
it.
Just one request, and this was a lot better than I expected it to be, just from having been handed the two board attachments, which baffled me. But when you're telling your 90-day stories or your narratives, and you make references to the data, if you could find a way to guide us to them, because I found myself searching for the percentages that you referenced and you spoke to us and couldn't find them. And so just to keep the whole thing grounded in the data, I know you want to do that, but still tell us what you're doing, which is fascinating, actually. That will be helpful to me.
And we've also found that board book, when you guys received the uploads, the color, I did not know that you didn't have the color coding.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's color coded, but
yes.
there's stuff miss, and this one I think is
Yes.
the real
Yes,
bad one.
that's the bad one. So anyway, we'll make sure that you receive a hard copy, because I think that,
Or just increase the resolution of your PDFs and the colors will come across. better.
and get color copier ink in there, color copier,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, during the meeting with Yolanda today, she said that she was going to send us a sort of a template for this process, which I got about an hour before the board meeting. And I was speaking to Superintendent Ferguson. So for the next monitoring session, which will be math, I think we will probably, try to get, and we spoke about this, even though the agenda packet is currently coming out on the Thursday before the board meeting, we will try to get the packet for monitoring out at least a week beforehand.
That would be great.
So we will aim for that Tuesday or earlier. Beware, principals, shifting up a few days. And on top of that, I think there's some room for making a slightly more, I guess, cohesive packet where the narratives, and this is what you're asking for, the narratives and the data are kind of melded a little bit better. So I think Mrs. Ferguson and I, with the coach's help, are going to try and do the second go around earlier and maybe a little bit more shiny.
Improved.
Improved.
We are going to improve on our process.
And I don't know if there's anything else that you would wish, but those are my goals, is earlier and a little bit more information in the board packet.
I agree with
I
that
am
100%.
going to say though, I'm impressed that this is our first go around. That was a lot of information and very good information, and I'm impressed with it. Interesting. And we are moving forward. Anything else, Ms. Ferguson?
No.
Moving forward with the governance model, not pushing her off. I'll do that too. Nothing else, Ms. Ferguson?
No, sir.
So we've all reviewed the communications report. Any questions for Ms. Ferguson on the communications report?
No, I will say that the app is becoming much less glitchy.
Agreed.
Thank you, Stephen. and
Thank you, Stephen.
Leslie.
And Leslie.
They're working with IT with the app.
Well, I wanted to just mention too that I was glad to see in her report about the newspaper, because our local newspaper has actually become a local newspaper again, and I'm very happy about that. So I think that can be a good avenue for getting information out.
Facilities report, Mr. King, you said you had something you wanted to add to it?
Evening, President Beatty, board members, and Superintendent Ferguson. Ms. Ferguson would like me to share with you that we touched again on the WME Honeywell debacle. We had our representatives send out a response letter, and it came to a determination that we have a Zoom meeting, and that took place day before yesterday, I believe it was. It was Ms. Ferguson, myself, Carmen was leaving the room with Becca, and then we had Stephanie with Walsh Gallegos representing us. Two representatives from Honeywell plus their attorneys, and basically it started off as we thought we might be able to kind of cover more ground on a set of letters, keeping going back and forth and taking so much time to respond. So, and I think we did really well because they opened up with Honeywell thinking that, that they didn't have any design flaws, that they fulfilled what they were contracted to do. And I think that we proved to show them that they didn't. They were demanding a full payment of their contract, and we just didn't see eye to eye there. And I think we made a big step in convincing them and letting them realize what hasn't been completed in that project, what was erred and missed. And so at the end of the conversation, at the end of everything happening, the Honeywell lawyer representative, she said, well, we're going to go back and have internal conversations about this, and then we will reach back out to you. Hopefully this week we hear from them to have one more Zoom meeting and see if we can finally come to agreement and put that to bed. But I think after that conversation, we as a district, I think we feel a little more comfortable in the outcome of this. So we're looking forward to that. My second update for you is just to let you know, we did get a PO approved for the fencing for White Mountain Elementary, and the contractor, I spoke with him today. He's placed the order with the 4 gates and the number of sections that are in this. We're probably looking about a month before we actually receive the material. So I'm hoping to have this installed and put behind us by Thanksgiving. So just to kind of give you that update there, that I think it'll really improve the area. The looks of it, every time I drive by, I kind of cringe. But we are working on that, and we're that looks like it's going to be coming to a head. So with that, if you have any other questions on my report, that's all I have.
Questions?
No questions.
Mr. King, thank you very much. Many questions on the activities report from Mr. Edson? Technology report, any questions? Enrollment update. Anything to
So
add?
I had a really good suggestion from Member Light today about creating a graph. And so I'm going to have a trend line from last year compared to a trend line this year of what it looks like. So that'll be a great visual. So I said, we can do that. So, but just for the board's information, our current enrollment today, well, this report is 1798. And so we, at the same time last year in October of 2023, we're at 1825. So we are basically down the 27 students. And so as I was discussing with Member Light, we have the ins and outs on a daily basis, 2 in, 1 out, 1 in, 2 out. So that's where we are. But once again, that is more positive than what the consideration was this summer.
Personnel report?
Personnel report, we have 2 certified positions open. One is we are still looking for a special education teacher at White Mountain Elementary and continuing to look for a counselor at Redosa Middle School. And other than that, we have our contractor positions at RMS. We are still looking for someone to be the ELL Family and Community Engagement Coordinator as a contractor and the literacy coach as a contractor. That's where we stand, and we need coaches. So if you know of anybody in the community, I know that coach, that athletic director Edson, he would appreciate filling those positions. And we do have a head track coach, and that is Mr. Moore.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Question came up today. He is our head track coach. Yes.
Good. Moving on to the financial reports. Any questions on the transaction report or the cash balances and encumbrances report?
No.
Moving on to action items, we have bars. Do I have a motion to approve the bars request?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion, I have 2 seconds. Any discussion?
I just would like to let the board know that ESSER funds have been expended.
They were in there. A motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Vote aye as well. Motion passes. Consideration and approval of the Ruidoso Municipal School Special Education Procedure Handbook. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Everyone read all 422 pages? I did not.
No.
So we do have 2 new board members that I would appreciate Dr. Edmister to briefly before the vote is cast to discuss what does this mean for the district, and is this something annual? Can you tell us about the special education procedural handbook?
As you may know, IDEA, individuals with disability education aspect that governs the law, the governance of the special education. The handbook outlines our obligations, the rights of the student, and the rights of the parents. It covers different areas such as discipline, faith, free and appropriate public education, and outlines procedures that the districts have follow to not only identify but also educate and also transition the students of special education or else. And it outlines graduation requirements for special education and also this as topics such as discipline. You don't have to do those for you to.
That's what I was banking on.
Yeah.
Personally.
So if you have any questions about any aspect of please don't hesitate to contact me. And just, my role as a special education director is to consult with principals, consult with Ms. Ferguson, and also guidance for special. Thank you. Ms. A, the coordinator for. I don't know. But we are familiar with that.
Does Walsh write the whole thing, or is it does Walsh write the entire thing? Does it come from state? Where's it?
That if you recall, the pages are divided into 3 columns. The first column is the idea, the actual federal law. Then the statute is the middle column, the New Mexico statute. So not the interpretation, but the application of the law. Here. And then the third column is the district. So that reflects our procedures. All of them have to be aligned. Higher standards than the federal law, but they help you lower standards.
Sure.
Well, 2 questions. Are there any major changes from last year? Because last year there was a fairly large.
Yes, correct. And what happened, I added another, I think it was a 26-page document also that outlined the changes. But these changes came into effect July 1st of this year, but now are reflected just now as I come. Major changes were the request for evaluation from parents or any member that has concerns about their child, and the obligation of the district to respond to that request. In the past, obviously, it was there in the law. However, New Mexico gave a guideline now that we have 15 school days to respond to a parent amount of time. We have to gather data
and respond yes or no to the parent if we will do quick evaluation on that based on data. That's the big one. The second one is the graduation requirement and guidelines. Because according to New Mexico, if you have a regular diploma, there are three kind of diplomas in New Mexico. If you have a regular diploma, then you, as a student with disability, you're not entitled to continuation, right? Meaning public education. But we have the students that due to their disability, they have the ability to stay in public education until they turn 22. So 21 until the day before the 22. We do have currently one student that is continues with us, but a student that graduates with a regular diploma doesn't have that right. So it eliminates that regulation. So those are the two major changes that obviously have affected the procedures that we implemented. And rest assured that those procedures have been changed since July 1st, even though that we didn't have control.
I remember you saying that in July. Now that you say it again. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any other questions? Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye. Well, finally, consideration of approval of disposal 25-1 obsolete vehicle. This looks like we're getting rid of a 2001 Ram truck that used to push a snowplow that has 200 and some odd thousand miles on it. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
A motion, and do I have a second? Any discussion?
Can't believe it only cost $5,000 when it was new.
No kidding.
That was it. That was my only, that was a statement. but
Did we buy it new or used?
There's no way. Anyway, still, sorry. Just had to spout that out. And it has to be a roll call.
Yes, it does. Roll call vote earlier. Member Tomlin, it's a roll call vote. Yay or nay?
Oh, my vote.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
Yes, yay.
Member Light,
I would like to dispose of this truck, yes.
Member Potter,
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes. Items discussed, suggested for future meetings. We've covered, and I will mail everybody beforehand. Upcoming events, we have a regional meeting next week, Truth or Consequences, which I believe Member Light is going to go. Visitation to White Mountain Elementary on the 24th, November 12th, a regular meeting, November 21st, middle school visitation, followed by another regular meeting. December 12th through the 14th is the RMSD annual conference in Albuquerque. And Kaylin already has a block of rooms for us at the Homewood Suite. Thank you very much. So we'll touch base with her if we can't move. If we cannot make it, she
Cannot
can
go
cancel.
for a dog walk.
No.
No, I will not anymore.
And then the high school visitation. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.